right, round of applause for the Power Trip Committee. Yes, yes. So I want to start this with a little gratitude. I want to thank Marilyn and Joanne for offering me the opportunity to share this platform and this space with you. And I also want to thank all of you in the room for this opportunity to become acquainted, and I hope that the future holds an enduring relationship for us. I'm very, very grateful to be here with you all today. And on behalf of my Lexia family, I want to thank you all for being the educators, the leaders that you are. And I want to ask you to give yourself a loud, rowdy round of applause. I mean rowdy. Because you did it for the last 2 years. You took our students through COVID, our families. Your faith is so great, and you deserve to be acknowledged for that. No matter where you sit, if you are in a district, in a school building, or you're a vendor, or you're a consultant, or you're retired and you threw your hat back in the ring because you really just love to work. Shout out to you. So, many of you all have had the chance to chat with me, and I've had the chance to chat with you. My name is Brittany Martin. Everyone calls me Brie, like the cheese, so you don't ever have to forget. And I work for Lexia Learning. I represent Lexia Learning very proudly because we do something that means so much to me. And today I want to talk a little bit about what that means to me and why I think literacy is such an important task for each and every one of us to attend to, right? If someone asked me what was the one thing that transformed the shape of my life, I would say without hesitation that it was my education. My mother might have a problem with that, but that's not her business. I had an incredible village. I believe in the village, and I had an incredible village that stood in the gap for me and for my parents when we could not. And that included friends, family members, and strangers. But without a doubt, what allows me to stand here, what allows me to feel free to chart my own course is my education, right? And it is fundamental to my life every single day, both personally and professionally. By a show of hands, do we have any first-generation Americans in the room? All right, it's me and it's you. It's me and it's you. My argument is that we should be allowed to add that to our resume, because if you are a first-generation American, especially if you're the eldest or the middle child or you're the daughter, you're the backbone of your family. You are the interpreter, but you also should mind your business, right? You gotta read all the mail, but stay in the child's place. And all you CTOs and directors of technology, I've been doing that since I was about, 6 years old, right? You are IT, right? And you are also a caregiver. You're the babysitter. You help your parents to raise your younger siblings, and that's what I did. Both of my parents immigrated to the United States from the Caribbean islands of Trinidad and Tobago and Barbados in search of additional resources and a different life. I didn't quite say better, but I did say different, right? And we'll talk a little bit about what I mean when I say that. Today, I am my parents' wildest dream because all they wanted was for their kids to get an education, right? And I'd hear it all the time. They'd say, "This is America. You're supposed to be educated. This is America. There's opportunities. This is America," right? There was this constant ring of this is America, and getting an education is what you do. It's who we are. And it's allowed me certain opportunities that I believe should be true for all of the students that we serve today. My education has afforded me access to spaces that people where I come from rarely make it to, and at no fault of their own, not because they don't have the wherewithal to be successful, but because the systems that many of our students contend with are not designed to provide that kind of access. It's also allowed me a quality of life that my family definitely enjoys with me. It's allowed me social mobility, an opportunity to see so much of this beautiful, beautiful nation and to rub shoulders with some amazing people who have diverse perspectives that help color the way I see the world and what I believe is possible. It has allowed me to realize some of my wildest dreams, like standing before a room full of phenomenal women telling my personal story in hopes that it'll encourage or compel you to action. But the thing that I am most proud of, that having an education has allowed me to do, is something that I have actually been doing my whole life, and that's being an advocate. In this room, each and every one of us, we share this title of leader. That means we are visionaries. That means we are problem solvers. We're innovators. We're disruptors. We are advocates. And we do the hard work today to create better tomorrows for others. And I would like to believe that in education, we lead so that the next generation can realize their dreams. And that's something that has incredible meaning for me, right? Realizing your dreams. Literacy is an important issue for everyone because our success as a society depends on the innovation of the next generation. I want to say a couple years ago, or just a while ago, I remember hearing this man, I don't remember his name, but he was from like the Federal Reserve, right? So far removed from education. And he said, the public education system has got to do a better job with output. Otherwise, our nation's in a bad place. We're not getting the human capital that we need. Now, we don't talk about our kids as human capital, but those folks do. We're not getting that. And that breaks my heart. And I'm going to tell you all about why that breaks the very core of my being. Because I know what it meant for me to have an education. And I've stood in a classroom, and I know what it means for my kids to have an education. And there's this thing that makes an education possible called literacy. There's no math. There's no STEM. Throw your gifted and talented programs out the window. College and career ready who? How could you do that if you are not attending to this linchpin in education? I am all for literacy, right? And I want everyone in this room to be too. But the harsh reality that we face, and this is a reality that should absolutely we're tired of it, and I know you are too. Let me just get these up on the slide, right? I was getting a little excited with my PowerPoint. All right. The harsh reality that we must all contend with is that too many of our nation's fourth grade students, too many of our nation's learners lack that particular skill which is mission critical to their educational success. 54%, approximately 130 million people in this nation are reading at a level below sixth grade. And 35% of fourth graders are at or above proficient reading measures. That means we're leaving a lot of kids behind. And their parents don't even know. Not all parents realize. Not until it's too late. And then we know that it's a cycle. 88%, the data tells us that 88% of children under the age of 6 whose parents lack a high school diploma, right, live in low-income status. And we know the correlations. I don't need to tell you all of the data. We know what the correlations are. In fact, it's sobering because it's exhausting to see this. And this work has preceded me. I know that. I know that when I was a tot, there were people like you all who were trying to make this right. And here we are in 2022, still trying to make this right. This is not okay. We should not be proud of this. I want to introduce you to my kids. I started teaching when I was really young. I was about 21, so I look just like my students, right? This is class 422. I had over 120 students, 9th, 11th, and 12th grade. And then the 10th graders realized that they didn't get to see me, so they would just come during their advisory, right? I became Miss Martin, Miss Marty Mar. I was their fun teacher, and I loved being their fun teacher. And maybe I wasn't the best teacher, but I promise you that I was their biggest advocate. These kids will never really know how indebted I am to them. I may not have always shown up in the classroom the way I should have, but I fought for them. I was that teacher that was a thorn in my principal's side, like literally. Mr. Wade, excuse me, did you give me a giant textbook to read with 12th graders? They should be reading authentic text. I probably should be in prison right now for copyright infringement, because I swear to you, I was at the photocopy machine photocopying, they're recording me, I can't tell you the author. Okay? I also taught during a time where we only got 100 pages for the year. I got 100 pages. So by the time I was done with chapter 1 for 120 students, I was at Staples asking them, how could I buy paper in bulk? But the truth was that I couldn't correct years of systemic failure. My kids were reading on grade levels. It's just too hard to share. Because I had to also make a decision. I was the 12th grade department chair, and so along with the other teachers and my principal, we had to make decisions about graduation. And I remember saying to him, some of these students shouldn't be graduating. And he said to me, I know, but if you can tell me what you'll do for them in 2 years, if we held them back 1 more year or 2 more years, we'll do it. Can you fix it? And I realized that I was in a very powerless position, and so was my principal. He didn't have the power to fix it either. Neither of us did. So, I did what any smart teacher did at that time. I went to charter school. Oh yeah, no, I'm not anti-charter, but I did start teaching in the charter schools at the height of the no excuses movement. If you believe in that, that's your business, but I'm gonna tell you now, there are excuses, okay? And that was really, really hard for me because I swore up and down that it was gonna be better, right? And then I realized it was the same. We just made it look better. We dressed it up with uniforms, nicely painted hallways, and really nice behavioral systems, right? But it was the same thing. And so I then did something else. I said, you know what? I'm going back to New York. That's where I'm originally from, because we do it better. We do it better. We do pizza better, bagels better, attitude better. So we've got to do education better. And I went to teach in Harlem. Anybody familiar with Harlem, New York? Uptown? Right, uptown. I went uptown, place that I really never visited as a child. When you're from Brooklyn, you don't go uptown. You don't go past Manhattan. Or past 42nd Street. You just never really go that direction. And I realized, yet again, new city, same problem. Same color kids, same socioeconomic status, same parents who wanted to know more but didn't, and the same teachers like me who didn't have the resources to do the job that we needed to do. I didn't escape the classroom. Last night I was at a table with Kate. Kate, yeah, we talked about this, right? I missed the classroom. Every day, I always missed the classroom. I mean, some days I'll pass. But the joy I get from being around children, like I shared with you all, I'm a super auntie. I have 19 nieces and nephews. I love children. So I missed the classroom. But I didn't escape it. My decision to leave the classroom was based on my desire to lead, just like you. I realized that my mother always said I had a big mouth and I never shut up, right? So I decided to put that to work. And by this time, I started to grapple with something in my life that up until that point, at my 3rd school now, I'd really misunderstood. That's where I want to introduce you to this lady. Ladies, there's a couple gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen. This is my mama. Her name is Trudy. My mother was born with an illness. My grandmother was affected by a pandemic in the 50s or 40s. Okay, where it was. And my mom, because of her stage of gestation, my mother developed congenital ear, eye, and heart failure, which is rubella. Today, kids get a vaccine for that, right? And they told my grandmother that she would not live. She's not gonna live. You shouldn't really try this pregnancy. She's not gonna live. That's not a plug for anything. I'm just telling you that right now. My grandmother said, okay, watch me. She came to America because they had the best doctors here to treat children with that illness. And my mother underwent surgeries, heart surgeries. She's legally blind. There's nothing we can do about that. She's hearing impaired. And her prognosis is that progressively she's going to lose vision and hearing. And it's happening right now. We have lots of struggles. So one day my mother will be completely blind and completely deaf. It's a hard pill for me to swallow. The trade-off that my grandparents made in their migration story to the United States was that they may have got the best medical care, but they got the worst education, because my mother went to school before the days of IDEA. And there was no requirement, nor were there resources for schools to attend to the needs of children who had issues like my mother. And when she tells me, in very abruptly, she doesn't go into it too much, and I realize it's trauma. When she tells me what it was like for her in school, I started to realize that decades after the passage of IDEA, I was in a classroom, and it was the same thing. She tells me about being in a classroom with kids. They just lump them all together. All kinds of physical disabilities, cognitive disabilities, teachers who were not trained to attend to those issues. I want to point you to, I know it might not be too clear, but that image up at the top, that's my mom with an assistive device that we've gotten for her, and she puts her papers underneath this device and it magnifies it so she can read it. And she feels so empowered. I wish you could see it when she does it. When she got this, she just couldn't wait for us to come over so she could show us that she could read. She could read her own papers, her own mail. That's it. That's all she wanted to do, was to open her mail and read it on her own. I want you to sit with that for a minute. I want you to think about the students in your classrooms that you serve, the language learners that just want to read the book, the struggling readers that just want to read the book, the parents that want to help their child to read, and the teachers that feel defeated. That's a feeling that you live with forever. It's a feeling that I've watched my mother struggle with forever. Pardon me, okay? Oftentimes when my mother would get angry with us, my mom has 3 girls. I think my dad did a lot in his life because he didn't get that boy. Right? And she'd always say, let me tell you something. It's my eyes, it's not my brain. She wanted us to know that there was nothing wrong with her brain. It was her eyes, it's her hearing. Now today, right, we would be required to teach a child like my mother by providing special accommodations and modifications. Thank you, right? We would provide these alternative pathways to mastery for children like her. We would ensure that the environment was safe and respectful and inclusive. And we would ensure that teachers were well prepared with training, support, and resources. We, as the leaders, we would advocate for her. Sadly, this was not the case in the 60s and the 70s. So my mother, my dear mommy, See that bottom picture of her, that's Trudy in rare form. You know, when she gets all dressed up and she just wants us to take pictures of her, and I take her out for brunch and mimosas, and she just feels so, so, so good. But my mom, she dropped out of high school, and she went to work at a factory. I want to share something very personal with you all that I've never shared, at least not in public. The only person who might know this is Adrienne. She's my therapist. I was embarrassed by my mother for a very long time. I hated her. I despised my mother. I blamed her, and I largely avoided her. Imagine being 19, 20, you don't speak to your mom. She'd call, I wouldn't answer her, or she'd page me, and I would never call back. Because I thought that there was something that she could do about it. I did. And that's why I say that I'm so indebted to my students, because it was them, it was through that lens, through standing in the classroom and realizing that it was not their brain. It wasn't their brain. It was us. It was the adults. It was the system. It had failed them. And they were going to be facing a life like my mother would face, right? Lacking social mobility. My mother has to move when I move. Lacking access to capital to realize their dreams. My mother never got to realize her dreams. I asked my mother one day, if you could do anything in life, what is it that you would have been? Anybody want to guess what my mother said she would have been? She would have been a teacher. She would have been a teacher. My mama would have been a teacher. I asked Trudy if she got the patience for that. Let's see, right? Hang on one second, right? Let's see what I have next here. Let's think about what the impact of low literacy means in our society and professional leadership. Cost the United States, once these slides are up, they all have the links, the sources, okay? So I want you to know that this is all verifiable data. Cost the United States as much as $2.2 trillion annually. That's what low literacy costs me and you and everyone in this nation. The impact to professional leadership and diversity in the workforce. You want a pipeline of diverse teachers? You want that? Start with your students. Start with your students, because they'll stay in their community if you give them a reason to stay in their community. This is not a problem that we cannot solve. We can solve this problem. Global competition and domestic innovation. Don't we want to be the America that's on top? I want to be part of the America that's on top. And that takes public education. We have to press forward. Multi-generational cycles of poverty, poor health, and social disenfranchisement. I don't have up here mass incarceration, but it should strike us that in many states, inmates are tested for dyslexia. Why do we care whether an inmate has dyslexia or not, right? Whether they can read or not. There is a correlation between literacy outcomes and your life outcomes. And that is what I want to make sure we are really fully committed to. That this work is not just about raising your test scores, raising your graduation rates. This is justice. This is the equity work. Challenge anyone when they say they want to do equity work and ask them how. Ask them how. Ask them to tell me how you would do the work without using the word equity. That's my thing now. I don't want to hear the word anymore. I want to hear the how. What is the how? Before we go into this, right, I want to talk about what we have to have radical courage to do. We have to have radical courage to do small, great things and create monumental change. What are some of those small, great things that we could do? I heard some of it already. I heard Joliet Public Schools talk about how they're paying paraprofessionals because they have additional skill sets. So we are encouraging teachers to continue their education, right? To become those experts, Just like Lindsay talked about, as the leadership shifts, it requires new skills. I heard Colleton Public Schools talk about partnerships with libraries and the impact in which that makes in their classrooms. This is equity work. Inclusivity. Please don't forget about your English learners. Please don't forget about your students with disabilities. For me, please don't forget about them. For my mama, please don't forget about them. Invest in educational technology. And ed tech companies in here, be inclusive in the design of your programs, in your outreach, in your approach to our partners. They are not our customers, they're our partners, because we walk with you in everything you do. Sponsor and partner, establish relationships with organizations, and we heard a whole session on that. There's something I've been hearing a lot lately, and I'm going to move into my closing here. I promise you, I won't be like my pastor, Ray Brown. I'm from the Resurrection Baptist Church in Schertz, Texas, okay? And every time Pastor Brown says, I'm going to be quick, you know it's about another 1 hour in church. It's only during football season he moves quickly. I've been hearing that literacy is a civil right. It's a civil right. That's my jam. I like that one. And I'm going to roll with that because I believe it too. I believe that literacy is definitely a civil right. But what does that mean for you and for me, for our everyday? What does that mean? I'm going to make sure I do this part right. Sure, we should bring it up everywhere we go, without fail. Bring it up everywhere we go and reinforce the message. But how should we aspire to make this a reality, right? How should we aspire to do this extraordinarily great thing? How do we make it true for all in the way we choose to live our personal and our professional lives? For me, I start by thinking about the civil rights movement itself. And I think about one of the most, if not the most prolific leaders, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And one of the things he says is, if I cannot do great things, I will do small things. Anyone know the rest? In a great way. I will do small things in a great way. When Rosa Parks decided to sit, she may not have thought she was trying to change the world. She just thought, okay, the injustice has gone too far, and today I'm just not the one. Okay? And when Mamie Till, Emmett Till's mother, decided to let the world see her baby boy, I don't think that she knew she would set in motion a civil rights movement. And when John Bingham, a senator in Ohio, authored Section 1 of the 14th Amendment Equal Protection Clause to secure equality for Black people, I don't think that he knew that one day that would be the foundation for liberty for same-sex couples and for women. I urge you to think of what small, great things you can do in your work, because literacy is, in fact, a civil right. And we are the advocates of today, preparing the leaders of tomorrow. I thank you all so much for giving me this opportunity, for your attention, and for your commitment to our kids.